Hello students, so I'm here again to continue with Act 3 Scene 2, and we'll start with Portia's speech today. But before we begin, I want you children to open your textbooks to this speech of Portia in Act 3 Scene 2 so that you understand better. Now, in the last class, I had discussed about Bassanio and Portia, where Bassanio tells Portia that nothing but that ugly feeling of doubt which makes him fear that he may not have Portia as his wife. And then he says that there cannot be friendship and union between snow and fire, so also there cannot be any relation between treason and his love for her. Then he goes on to say that this option of confess and live was offered to traitors on the rack as the alternative to dying with their secrets. So he says that confess and love would be the gist of his confession. This would be the gist of his confession. And he calls it a happy torment, a torture, and which can be said to be happy when his torturer teaches him how to be released or how to be free from all this. So then he tells Portia that he should be let go and seek his fortunes by making the choice of the caskets. So Portia then says, "Away then go quickly, and I'm locked in one of them, and if you love me, you will find me out." So, and then she tells Nerissa and the rest of the other followers there to all stand all apart, out of the way. And she says, "If you do love me, you will find me out." Then she goes on to say, now the rest of the speech of Portia, which is important, is missing from this slide, but you can look into your books and follow the lines. Nerissa and the rest, "Let music sound while he doth make his choice." Now she says, let there be music while he is going to make his choice. Then if he lose, he makes a swan-like end. So now if he loses, he will be making an end like that of a swan. Now fading music will accompany his end, like the swan that sings while it is about to die. So the Elizabethans believed that the swan sings only once, just before it dies. So here she means to say he's going to be like that swan who sings just before it dies. Fading in music. So fading music, the faint music would be there, and that the comparison may stand more proper. And he's saying this, and she says that this comparison between a swan and Bassanio would be more complete when my eyes will be filled with tears that will be like the stream and the watery death bed. Just as the river is to the swan, so the tears in my eyes will be to Bassanio if he fails to make the correct choice. So this is again denoting intense love of Portia for Bassanio. Then she further says, "He may win, but there are chances that he may win. And what is music then? Then what would be music at that time? Because when he's going to make a choice and he's going to go wrong, then the music would be a fading music. And what music would be then? What is music then? Then music is, even as the flourish, then the kind of music that would be there would be as the flourish when true subjects bow to a new crowned monarch. The music that would be there would be like the music played at a ceremonial fanfare and it will be a fanfare on trumpets. The trumpets would be blowing exactly like what is customary at the coronation of a monarch, when a monarch or a king is being crowned and the trumpets are blown. So that kind of music would be there if he wins. Such it is as are those dulcet sounds in break of day. And again, that it would be that music, the music that can be heard to a new as are those dulcet sounds. Dulcet here means sweet. It would be that sweet sounding music during the break of the day that creep into the dreaming bridegroom's ear, that can be heard on the morning of the bridegroom's wedding. Now this is an allusion to the old English custom of playing music under the windows of the bridegroom's bedroom on the morning of his marriage. So she is referring to this. She says either it is, if it's going to be his end, the music would be like the fading music or the song of the swan, and he would meet his end. Otherwise, if he may win, then the music would be that blowing of the trumpets at the time of the coronation of a king, or that sweet sounding music which sounds sweet and lovely to the ears of a bridegroom on the morning of his wedding or his marriage, and summon him to marriage, which calls him for his marriage. Now he's going with no less presence, but with much more love. Now, no less presence here means he's no less handsome. He's got a very handsome appearance, and he's got, but more than his handsome appearance, he's got much more love than young Alcides, much more love than Alcides. Now, Alcides is the name of Hercules, actually, who was the son of Alces. And the story here goes as such that he rescued Hesione, an unmarried daughter of the Trojan king, from being sacrificed. Like she was like being given as a virgin tribute to a sea monster. So it was Hercules who saved this Hesione, the daughter of the Trojan king. And at that time he acted not from love, not out of love, but due to the desire to get the horses offered as a reward. So Portia here actually compares herself to Hesione, the princess or the daughter of the Trojan king who was about to be sacrificed, and Bassanio with much more love than Alcides, and she compares Bassanio to a person who has much more love than Hercules. I stand for sacrifice. And she says that I am ready to sacrifice. The rest aloof are the Dardanian wives, and the rest of the people standing here are like those Trojan women. Dardanians are the descendants of Dardanus, the person who founded Troy. And the rest are Dardanians' wives with bleared visages, with tear-stained faces. They're also feeling sorry. So they've got tears in their eyes. They come forth to view the issue of the exploit, and how those Dardanian wives, they came forward, those Trojan women at the time of the sacrifice came forward with tear-stained faces to look at the outcome or to view the outcome of the brave deed. So go means go ahead. Hercules, she means Bassanio. Live thou. If you live, I live. With much, much more dismay. And then she goes on to say that I am going to live with much more sadness. Dismay here means sadness. I view the fight than thou that makest the fray. And fray here means fighting. So she says, I view the fight with much more sadness than you who are fighting, who are there in this fight. Then music plays while Bassanio comments on the caskets to himself. Now the song goes, the paraphrase of the song. Tell me where is fancy bred, or in the heart or in the head? How begot, how nourished? Reply, reply. Now tell me where is fancy bred means where is that passing affection. Fancy means not the true love, the passing emotions of love. Where did this develop as opposed to real true love? In the heart or in the head? Either in the heart it was born, or in the head. How begot? How was it born? How did it originate? How nourished? How was it taken care of? How did it sustain? Reply, reply. It is engendered in the eyes. It is born or conceived in the eyes, with gazing fed. In those eyes, with loving glances. It is fed in the eyes. And fancy dies in the cradle where it lies. And fancy means the passing affection or the emotions of love. It dies in the eyes where it was born. So let us all ring fancy's knell. Let us all ring the bell, the funeral bell of this fancy. Means I'll begin it, ding dong bell, and all start ringing ding dong bell. Through this song they want to convey that this love of Bassanio for Portia is true love, and it's just not a passing emotion or passing affection or a fancy. So now children, you can see the rest of the speech, that is from Bassanio's speech. It can be all viewed on the screen. So Bassanio says, the outward show so may the outward shows be least themselves. The world is easily deceived with ornament. So he's saying that may the outward show, the outward appearance, he means to say that the appearances are deceptive and they may be least themselves. These appearances may be not at all what they appear to be. The world is still deceived with ornament, and the people are still deceived with the outward appearances. In law, in court, what plea so tainted and corrupt, but being seasoned with a gracious voice, obscures the show of evil. In the court, a plea, a request which is so tainted and corrupt means so bad and dishonest, but it is covered up with a gracious voice. Gracious means eloquent, a sweet sounding voice which requests or makes that plea. It obscures the show of the evil. Means it tries to conceal. Obscure means conceal the show of evil. So here it means that in a court, a case which is most dishonest may be pleaded in a fine, eloquent voice to conceal the face of the evil. In religion, What damned error, but some sober brow will bless it and approve it with the text. Means, and this happens in religion also. Damned error, children, here means a great sin. Sober brow means a pious looking person. So how in religion also, a pious looking person, how he can get away with a great sin just by his looks of piousness, and he will bless it and approve it with the text, and whatever he speaks with the help of the scriptures of the Bible, people may seem that he is speaking the truth, and he will justify himself, hiding the grossness with fair ornament. Hiding the grossness here means he will try to hide the evil which is behind that with all the outward appearances, with his pious looking appearance. So here Shakespeare has tried to convey that a great sin can be committed by a man with a pious appearance, who is able to quote the Bible and excuse what he is doing. So he can commit a great sin just by looking pious and quote the scriptures of the Bible and just make an excuse for what he is doing. There is no vice so simple but assumes some mark of virtue on his outward parts. Means there is no vice so simple which does not have some outward appearance of virtue. Whatever bad is there will have some outward, glittery outward appearance. So appearances are deceptive. They have an outward show, but from inside they may not be, the reality may not be there. So how many cowards whose hearts are all as false? How many cowards whose hearts are as false, means as unreliable, just like as stairs of sand, just like a staircase built of sand. Nevertheless, such cowards, they put on a very brave appearance, and they wear yet upon their chins. Wearing upon your chin means to put on a brave appearance, as the beards of Hercules and frowning Mars. And what kind of appearance do these cowards they put on their faces? They put on just like Hercules. The Hercules is considered to be the god of strength in the classical mythology, and like the frowning Mars, like the god of war. Mars is the god of war. Who inward searched have livers white as milk. And if we search from within their hearts, we'll find that they have livers as white as milk. Now in during the Elizabethan period, people having a white liver were considered to be cowards. So, and these assume but valor's excrement. And these such people, they assume, a brave appearance, and they grow beards, and they try to show that they have a very brave appearance, just as a beard, to render them doubted, so that there is no doubt on them. Look on beauty, and you shall see it is purchased by weight. Now, it was believed that the Elizabethans regarded the liver as the seat of courage. So, white-livered meant a coward. A brave man's liver was said to be red with blood. So, there are people, cowards, who have, livers as white as milk, means they are cowards, and they have those outward signs of courage that make them seem to render them redoubted, means that they make them seem formidable, that there is nothing wrong with them. So, look on beauty, and you shall see its purchase by weight. So, and look at beauty. Now you'll find, look at all the things of beauty here, means the cosmetics, and you will see that cosmetics can be bought by weight in a chemist shop, which works a miracle in nature, which therein works a miracle, which creates a miracle. Just by applying cosmetics, a person grows beautiful, looks beautiful, and they make them lightest that wear most of it. And those who put on a lot of makeup, they become the lightest. Here there is actually a pun, means light in character. So because they put on a lot of makeup to show that they're very pretty and beautiful, but they actually become lightest, means light in character. So are those crisp, snaky golden locks. Crisped here means curly, and so are those golden locks, curly golden locks. Winding, snaky means winding like snakes, which make such wanton gambols, which make some lively movements. Those curls, they make such lively movements upon supposed fairness, upon the supposed assumed beauty. People apply cosmetics, they have those golden snaky looking curls which seem to be very bouncy and lively, making lively movements over a face which is supposed to be beautiful, often known to be the dowry of a second hand. And these curls often are said to belong to another head. That means Shakespeare is here referring to wigs, W-I-G-S, the wig that people wear. The hair may not be theirs, it may be a person's, he or she may be just wearing a wig. The skull that bred them in sepulture. The skull on which they grew is lying in the tomb. Sepulture here means lying in the tomb. Thus ornament is but the gilded show. And thus their outward adornment is only the treacherous shore. So here a lovely shore can distract a man from the perils of a stormy sea. It could mean this: the beauteous scarf veiling an Indian beauty. A pretty scarf can hide a dangerous dark-skinned beauty. That seeming truth which cunning times put on. Now it was believed that the Elizabethan ideal of beauty was blonde with a fair skin. They thought of the dark-skinned people, the West Indians, as Indians. So in a word, means in short, the seeming truth which cunning times put on, a false appearance which crafty people put on to entrap the wisest, to deceive the wise people. Therefore thou gaudy gold, therefore you showy gold, hard food for Midas. Here means food which King Midas could not eat, because food touched by Midas turned into solid gold. And there was a story behind this. A wealthy king, Midas, in Greek mythology, who desired that all things which he touched should be turned into gold. So he got this request by God, and even the food which he touched became gold. So he begged to Dionysus to take this favor back, which the god did later on. So here he is trying to say that this gaudy gold, which is like became hard food for Midas couldn't eat. I will none of thee. I will not open you. I will not have anything to do with you. None of thee means I will have nothing to do with you. No, none of thee, thou pale and common. Neither will I have anything to do with this pale and common. Drudge here means ordinary slave. You pale silver casket between man and man, means you pass your, like passing from man to man in the form of silver coins. But thou meager lead, but you meager means unattractive lead, which rather threateneth than does promise aught, which makes threats rather than promises something in the inscription on the casket. So he's giving reasons. Midas, which became hard food, gold, which became hard food for Midas, silver, which is pale and common, passing on from man to man in the form of silver coins, and lead, which is unattractive, meager, and which threatens rather than promises anything in the inscription on the casket. So, thy paleness moves me more than eloquence. Your blunt message moves me more than any eloquent words would do. So I am moved led by your inscription, and here I choose. Here choose I, and so I choose. Joy be the consequence. So may the outcome of my choice be happiness.